too repetitive of the previous talks. Everything's off-label, as you can imagine. So who does not need ascending arch TEVAR? Well, people with congenital aortic syndromes, people with big, huge aneurysms like this and huge annuluses certainly don't. We know we do really well with these patients, less than 2% mortality in the United States overall, all comers, and in centers of excellence, well under 1% mortality in this group of patients. So this isn't really the target of what we're looking at. But we are looking at 3 different approaches to the ascending, and we saw examples of all of those today. And one of the things that I'll reiterate is the reason we're all going to show the same cases is because you can count the number of good ones that have done well on like 2 hands right now. So it's still an evolving area. Ascending only grafts, I think that is available in limited capacity, as Eric Rosselli spoke about earlier in terms of the pathologic targets that we can use it on. Ascending aortic stent grafting with a TAVR valve, so retention of the sinuses, no coronary branches. And then finally, the full root replacement where you have direct cannulation of covered stent grafts into the coronaries, as we saw described. One of the problems with any kind of TEVAR in this area is the concept of motion in the ascending aorta, and just remember that the annular area increases by 8 to 10% in systole in people who don't have aortic stenosis, which is the primary group we're looking at here. And there's also 4 to 7 millimeters of root to base motion at the root, 3 to 4 at the brachiocephalic trunk, and then finally a twisting motion of about 6 degrees with between diastole and systole. So lots of motion, very, very complicated place to have a stent stay sealed in a durable position for a long time. That's why we're really interested in annular fixation. That we know TAVR valves do well in the annulus, although it is calcified. And so how do we fix something where there isn't calcification? And I think the current TAVR valves we use most commonly, the SAPIEN valve and the Evolute valve, are not really the long-term solution in this space. We really need the newer valves like the J valve or Deanna valve that actually have tissue fixation. And just remember that the vast majority of patients, or maybe not the majority, but at least half the patients we do some kind of Bentall repair on today have an annulus that's far too big to treat with any currently available TAVR device. The other thing is that when we look at the pathologies that we're treating, most of the people we operate on for a Bentall procedure are actually patients with bicuspid valves and root aneurysms, and that presents its own very complex group of problems. In particular, if you have a paravalvular leak, for instance, with a bicuspid valve and a TAVR endobentall in there, that you haven't sealed it. And so that paravalvular leak isn't just a hemodynamic problem, you've actually maybe even pressurized the aneurysm in that situation. So as Eric showed us, the ASG device is here and now ready for use in certain ascending aortic pathologies where we don't involve the valve, and it does give a very good coaxial landing. As we saw previously, Thiele's technique, the rendezvous technique for creating basically a window for coronary perfusion at the time of an endo procedure is a good option as well for certain pathologies, but remember it doesn't seal the root itself. So if there's a tear in the root in a type A dissection or a root aneurysm, that will still be pressurized with that technique, as will other scenarios where we use a TAVR and an ascending stent graft. They're not connected and don't have true coronary stent grafts. And this is the Gaia technique, which we already saw today, where down-facing branches, first in human, that was done in 2019 or 2020. And this is just another look at that technique and sort of the pathology, the pseudoaneurysm that they were treating, the femoral deployment of the aortic stent graft, and then there was the transapical deployment of the aortic valve, and then the direct cannulation of the coronary arteries with covered stent grafts. And it's a pretty complicated procedure. You could see how a lot of things can go wrong. You probably don't have a lot of time to get those coronaries cannulated and ready. This is another technique that the folks in Maryland have innovated. I think they've done about half dozen cases, as Eric mentioned, where they're basically taking an aortic stent graft, sewing a TAVR valve onto it, and then deploying it femorally And that's very promising. It's kind of a cool technique. You can either leave some sinuses, some fenestrations open in the root to perfuse the coronaries without actually directly cannulating them, or you can add in the grafts to directly close off the root. Lots of considerations, but the key thing is, when you're cannulating coronary, small stent grafts, lots of angulation, super short landing zone, rotational up and down motion. We have no idea how these things are going to last over the long term, and we're really, really far away from that as being a clinical reality, I think, for stable patients. But it's doable now, and I think, I would agree with Eric that really the place we want to use all of this technology right now is in acute type A dissection in patients who we don't think are good surgical candidates. I think that is the group that will benefit the most. Thank you.